So thank you so much for being here for our Midweek Renewal. This is a very special Midweek Renewal, but we do this every Wednesday, and we're following pretty much the same format that we have. I find it an honor and a privilege to be able to introduce a person for many of us who has been our minister, our mentor, our teacher, and certainly our friend, the wonderful and magnificent Dr. Lloyd Barrett.
Thank you. Where should I? Wow. Wow. What a joy. What a joy. Immense gratitude. Please permit me to sit. Is that okay? Before moving on, I am reminded of one poet who said, "A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deeply and taste the Pierian spring," he said. "Shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, but drinking deeply sobers us again." May we drink deeply of the spiritual energy that is present. And I am affirming that this spiritual energy that is present is oozing, expressing, vibrating in every person present. I know it's great to see each other, but this energy is every person in this room has the inscription of divine magnificence, and I am not making this up. It's a spiritual declaration. The truth is we are enveloped in an ocean of magnificence, and yet the circumstances with which we are faced, in my case, I say to myself, "Lloyd, you listen to so many headlines, you need to stop and write you some heart lines." So, for instance, for some reason or the other, since there are a couple of people in the audience, I believe, who were with me in the weekend of July 27th when we went there to support Reverend Marquita McAllister, who was recently hired as the new will be the senior minister of the Dallas Center beginning in January, but she'll begin working the middle of this month. And the reason I mention that is because for some reason since that weekend, July 27th, I have not looked at an hour and a half worth of news. Something happened to me and I kept saying, "Lloyd, are you writing your own heart lines versus listening to headlines?" And do you know that makes a difference? There is another you. A more magnificent you. Yes, there is another you. A more creative, a more expansive, and a more dynamic you. Yes, there is another you. So then, let's move into that realm. Let's taste the nectar sweet, because indeed there is another you. And that is our focus for this evening. Another you. Another me. And before I proceed, I want to express a sense of gratitude for every person present, and certainly for the Mile High team. You know, when Shekinah and I left July 1st 2013 to establish residence in Las Vegas. This is my first time. And I say our because, to be honest with you, I think Shekinah's energy is with me. Before continuing, I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank Reverend Josh and all the team, Reverend Jackie, and I have to put this in there. Lee, who is the events coordinator here, what many of you may not know, when we were here before, we had a Siberian Husky whose middle name I gave him, my middle name, George. Well, lo and behold, George attracted a form of cancer. There was a Science of Mind conference in Miami. I asked Lee, would he take care of George while we were at the convention, knowing George, of course, had this challenge with cancer. He had been to many veterinarians in the area. Lee reported that while we were in Miami, George was found on the lawn. We were at 3160 Dover Court back then, and he had significant challenge. Lee picked him up, took him in the house, did a prayer treatment, and said, "You will not die on my watch." You're going to wait till Lloyd and Shekinah come home. Do you know the day we came home, Shekinah was sitting on the steps and she said, "Honey, come and look at George. I've never seen a dog look so intently in my eyes." Do you know George died about 4 hours later? The dog waited. Thank you, Lee. Thank you. When we share the thought, there is another you, we are speaking of a variety of experiences we might undergo. It might relate to health. It might relate to relationships. Could be finances. It could be some goal, intention, or aspirations that we have. It could be synonymous with the biblical thought when the disciples had fished, I think it was Peter, had fished all night and went to Yeshua. By the way, let me digress a moment because I know that some metaphysicians don't like to use the word Yeshua or Jesus. I want to quickly mention that, Ernest Holmes says, don't forget, nothing has happened to the power since Jesus used it. Same power. So let's be clear. So the fact is that we have access to this immense degree of energy, whether we call it Yahweh's energy or Yeshua or Jesus' energy or divine energy or infinite power or whatever. Well, what also came to mind with the topic, the other you, is the name Mile High, because one of the affirmations Shekinah and I frequently shared, I don't believe we shared it a lot publicly. We would say it at home, or, "Honey, I am a mile high and still expanding." And as I was reflecting on the topic, the other you, I thought of the word and the teachings of Ernest Holmes, the teachings. Mile high. How about this? What if our lives reflected maximized inspiration lavishly expressed? I want to repeat and ask it in the form of a question. What if my life, your life, our lives represented, expressed, exude, emit the energy of maximized inspiration lavishly expressed? How would that feel? What would happen? what transformational experience would be etched in every dimension of our lives? What impact would we make on the universe that seemed to be in a whirlwind of chaos? How would our lives really be? Mild. And how about the H high? What if it meant heightened insights? What if our lives represent heightened insights? Are we aware how that would really be transformed into the other you? Recently, I was laughing with or at myself because I said, Lloyd, you must really like doctors to tell you nothing can be done. You must forgive me. You know, Ernest Holmes used the phrase, I am simple, but I'm not simple-minded, Ernest would say. And so I adopted mine is, I'm silly, but I hope I'm not stupid. And the reason I say that, think about the times. I don't know if you have ever been in the presence of a professional, whether it's a doctor or a therapist, who say nothing can be done. But some of you know this. On November 4th, 2007, I was literally making notes at 3160 Dover to do the Sunday evening service right in this room. And as I got up with my notes, I fell out in the floor. So initially, since I had no pain, I thought I might have tripped over the carpet or something. Well, I tried to get up, and I was so weak I couldn't. So I must have shouted. She kind of ran from upstairs, and she said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I don't know. I can't get up." And at the time, my mind of reference was, if you are real sick, there is pain. Well, I had no pain, so I thought, there's nothing wrong with you, Lloyd. Get up. Well, she took me to St. Joseph's Hospital, emergency. After some tests, the doctor said, "Why is your temperature 102? Well, I am not facetious, I don't think. I don't practice being facetious. But I said, "Doctor, how many people go around with a thermometer in their pocket?" I don't know what my temperature is. I wasn't trying to be a smart guy. I just, I didn't know the temperature was 102. So they worked on me from Sunday evening, November 4th. Monday morning, about 10:30, the doctor sat on my bed and said, "Mr. Barrett, we don't know how to get that temperature below 102, so we're going to send you home." Thank God for science of mind. I knew I had some faith, but to be honest, I didn't know I had that much faith because I said, "Doctor, that's okay. I'll go home and talk to God." I was very weak, so I couldn't talk real loud to God. So I came home, and about 1:30, going into Tuesday morning, I got up. I said, "Okay, universe, God, divine presence, the doctors don't know what the situation is, but I bet something in the universe knows, and I need to know." I have to confess, I was very weak. I was so weak that I normally sleep upstairs. I couldn't climb the stairs, so she kind of made it comfortable for me to be downstairs. I had a little notepad, and something said, and I wrote down what was being revealed, that, "Lloyd, whatever is going on is from one side to the next, and it's an inch above your navel." So me being silly, I said, "Lloyd, you don't even know what's above your navel, so..." And then the inner voice said, "Go and find an acupuncturist." So I told Shekinah the insight or the revelation, whatever you call it, or the intuitive messages. And we found, as a matter of fact, I don't know if she still have her practice, but there was a practitioner here that had an acupuncture practice named Monica, and so we went to her. I had never been to an acupuncturist before. She put me in a machine, and I heard her say, "Oh my God, if Reverend Lloyd is this sick, the world is coming to an end." I said, "Well, what's the matter?" She said, "The machine has never done this before." I said, "What did it do?" She said, "It showed you have no energy." I said, "Well, that's why I'm here." I said, if I had energy, the universe wouldn't tell me to go find an acupuncturist. I said, because I had never been to one before, and that came to me like by the time that morning was like 2 a.m. I said, you don't get up at 2 o'clock just laughing. You know, you get up for serious business, asking the universe for some information. And I said, that's what I got. Now, why am I sharing this? Think about all the different things that goes through one's awareness, one's mind, when the doctor says he doesn't know how to get your temperature below 102, he's going to send you home. Then the lady said, your machine has never done that before. You see why I go to the Bible a lot? There is a prophet that says, call unto me, I will answer you. I will show you great and marvelous things that you know not of. Our question within the framework of the other you, are we really calling on the divine presence? There is a metaphysician that said, go first. I think it's Meister Eckhart, the mystic. He said, go first to God, then go to others as God directs. Go first to God, then go to others as God directs. Now, you and I know many people don't believe that, or they don't really trust it. Here's an example. I had the honor to be counseling a man right here at Mile High years ago, and he had a business, and he asked me, could I work with him once a month? What happened was I had created a class called Women in New Thought and Some Women in the Bible. And I was sharing that the women in New Thought, like Myrtle Fillmore, like Nona Brooks, and they were strong women. When they did their prayer and believed something, they didn't go around asking somebody, well, what do you think about it? They believed. So the gentleman asked me during the break, he said, how could I get some of that power that these women had? So I said, well, you know, these women didn't call on the divine presence only when it was time to call 911. I said, they call on the divine presence consistently. Now, this is congruent with an essay Ernest Holmes wrote called Your Spiritual Bank Account. We cannot deposit in our spiritual bank accounts only when there are emergencies. And I'm not hollering at you, I'm just excited. We've got to make deposits before time for withdrawal. The deposits might be positive reading, music that energizes, such as the song I ask Tom, what would I do if I were brave? I play that song at home almost twice a day. I just love that song. What would I really do? What would you do? And coming back to the concept of our spiritual bank account deposits, may I invite us to look at various aspects of life and to maximize the other you. Ask the self, what am I depositing in the bank account of my consciousness? Am I waiting until there is an emergency and then rush to the bank of prayer and said, oh my God? Or am I consistently saying, I am open to the magnificence of divine ideas. I am willing willing to be infused with the flowing energy of a mighty mind. I am standing at the cockpit of my magnificence, and I love it. What are we really imparting in our inner bank so that the other you, the other me, is like, I don't know if you remember the story. It is said Ernest Holmes was speaking, and the people thought something was physically wrong with him. I think it was at the dedication of a church. I forgot the name, but it was in the east part of L.A. The Whittier Church. And they said he was on stage, and they noticed his face changed as if something was the matter. But in the midst of his talk, he said, "Oh God, I see it. I see it. The veil is thin between. I see it. Oh, living soul, this is the evidence. I am illumined now. I see it, and I shall speak no more." And he sat. I wonder how receptive are we to divine illumination? Are we really open to the divine? Now, with regards to the other you has deep impacts that sometimes the mind cannot comprehend. You remember the thought of, let us release what ought to be released and retain what ought to be retained? We say it quite frequently. And there, I have to be confessed to you, I had an experience that was probably the deepest healing I ever had in my life. I had it right here in this community, and it was facilitated by a practitioner. I want to share the story. And I asked a family member if I might use her name, because even though it's a positive message, I don't like to use people's name without permission. And she gave me the permission. After I was released from the hospital, I was because of the E. coli, I was at the hospital a total of 5 weeks. And you know, they don't keep you in hospital for 5 weeks just to be looking at you. And during that time, I experienced a wide range, everything from my silliness, when my body started to shake and I didn't know why. The doctor came in. I said, "Hey, doc, come over here. I'm having me an earthquake." Well, nobody had told me that that would happen when the liver stopped purifying the body and the body's reaction was a shaking or that kind of a thing. And then they gave me antibiotic, and they didn't tell me the side effects. I woke up and my skin is peeling. The doctor comes in. I said, "Doctor, please, I don't want to look like Michael Jackson." But, you know, I'm sick, but I'm trying. Humor helps me not to feel so depressed. And the doctors seem to like it, too, because they smile quite a bit when I say that. And then they tell me the solution. So I'm released from the hospital, and I'm wondering, why am I still so weak? And the doctor said, "Listen, you lost over 30 pounds in a month. Your body, your cells, your muscles all have to adjust." So then, this amazing practitioner, without me asking, volunteer, started coming to the house to do therapy to my feet and to do spiritual mind treatment. On one occasion, I started crying like deep tears. And she said to me, "Reverend Lloyd, are you okay?" I said, "Yes, but you don't know. You are healing more than my physical feet. You are healing the caverns in my soul that started when I was in college." I said, "Let me share the story." and I share it with you now because it has had a great impact with the other you. I was the 1959, I was elected the president of the college in St. Augustine, Florida, a small college. By the way, that's one of the few colleges I know of in America that had to relocate because of racism. It's now in Miami as Florida Memorial University. So I said to my fraternity brothers, we need to do something positive for the community. Let's go give blood. We walked in, and I said, we are here to give blood. And the nurse said, we don't need no black blood. I remembered we walked away, and I literally felt like I was not human, like I wasn't walking. It was very unusual in this respect. Neither of us 4 or 5 guys said a word to each other. We just walked back to the college. Over the years, I kept saying, Lloyd, you need to heal that. I tried my best. When there are little things, I can heal it through writing. Many of you know my first wife transitioned from sickle cell anemia. She needed blood in Indianapolis. I would give blood, but every time I sat in the chair to give blood, I heard the voice, we don't need no black blood. But I gave it. Fast forward, I kept working on myself. Lord, you got to go deeper. One year I was driving through St. Augustine, and I felt so uncomfortable, I could not sleep in that city. I kept saying, Lloyd, you got to go deeper to heal. Science of Mind had a conference in Orlando. I said to Shekinah, honey, let me rent a car. Let me drive back up to St. Augustine because my body will tell me if I have gotten the other you of real healing. When I saw the name of the hospital, Flagler Hospital, my gut told me no, because it acted as if the surgery was being undertaken right there. My body was telling me, Lloyd, the other you of healing has not even started yet. Marla Swanson facilitated the depth of the healing I needed. Please give her a round of applause. I am sharing that story not for history, but because there are lots of us humans having deep emotionality. I didn't know I could have gone to a therapist to get that healing. I tried writing, I tried meditation. I did not get a clearance. How do I know I got a clearance? After Marla massaged my feet and I cried, I deliberately said to Shekinah, I'm going to drive from here to Fort Lauderdale to see my sister and stop and see if I can sleep comfortably in the city of St. Augustine, Florida. That was the first time I was able to do that since they told me they didn't need black blood. The other you is not easy to be attained at all times. The other you calls for purposefulness. It calls for depth. It calls for a willingness to be transformed. It calls for deep prayer, meditation, communication. It calls for biblical references that supports us. It calls for an open heart. I have to ask if I have any time left. Okay. I don't want to disband protocol. But I really want to alert us to look deep within. Here is how Leazzo puts it. withdraw within the self and look. And if you do not find yourself beautiful yet, imagine you are an artist and you are about to create a masterpiece. Cut away all that is unnecessary. Straighten out all that is crooked, and bring to light everything that is overcast, he said, and then we will discover ourselves to be that most magnificent person that we already are. That is one way we access the other you, the elevated you, the magnificent you. I'm going to close with this school story. When I was teaching social studies in Watts, it was hard to let my students, 5th and 6th graders, know that this was not just some theoretical stuff, that it was happening to people. So I would use music. I used the radio to listen to national news because that was a part of the curriculum. They ought to be able to identify national news, local news, international. I did all that. I subscribed to the newspaper so they could read it, but I still felt something was missing. So going back to that concept that just before going to sleep, instead of going to sleep worried, tell the universe what you desire, and the universe, the creative mind, will reveal. It's consistent with the thought, there is nothing hidden that shall not be revealed. So I told the universe, it's not a formal 5-step prayer treatment. I guess you could do it, but the way I did it was, God, universe, I've been trying my best to teach my 5th and 6th graders the meaningfulness of social studies, but they don't seem to get it. I need help. I said that about 10 p.m. And about 1:30 a.m., this is what happened. The human cry. My countrymen, why must our children weep? Why should humans suffer? Why should our nation sleep? It is happening in Africa with Botha and his clan. There are fire bombs in Ireland, severe unrest in Poland. My countrymen, why? When will these fighting cease? Our children die, oh, hear the cry. Let's hoist the flags of peace. There is illiteracy in Haiti, education, oh, so far. Gang warfare roaming rampantly. We die. We cry, oh, why? There is fighting in the Philippines with soldiers on the move. Guatemala, Nicaragua, what priorities? What wars? They are trading bread for armaments. Teachers, preachers, their heads spent. My countrymen, must peace be for a few? Who hide in mind? Who seek to find? Why? When will these fighting cease? Again, I hear the human cry, the clanging of arms, loud alarms, guns bought, bread denied. Battleships built, schools decried. A distant echo lingers, and it is a cry for peace. Apartheid, cease! Let families stay, let children play. Why steal their lands? Why tie their hands? Oh, countrymen, my countrymen, let us unify again. Come, walk and talk together. Come, lay your hands in mine. We'll save the land. We'll lend a hand. Our beauty, let it stand. The human cry. When the human cry is answered, there is a new you and there is a new me. When the human cry is answered, transformation takes place. When the human cry is answered, there is more joy in the land. Healings become more prolific and more widespread. Harmony is heard all over the land. The very trees will sing songs commensurate with Shakespeare's thought. Books in the running brook, sermons in stones, and good in everything. My friends, may I dedicate this to you. It's called victory. The divine presence gave it to me. Once you have tasted victory, you will want to drink again. You will want to leap beyond the mark. You will want to feel the spark. Once you have tasted victory, you will never wince again. God's power will bloom within your heart. Amazing messages you will impart. Yes, you have tasted victory. Yes, you have felt the spark. Once you have tasted victory, all good you must impart. Let me close with a few affirmations. And you might want to say it in your mind. My mind is open to the fullness of pure spirit. Our minds are open to the fullness of pure spirit. Divine energy is infusing all areas of my life. Divine energy is infusing all areas of our lives. I now accept spiritual truths in my life. I do not confuse facts with truth. Facts change. Spiritual truth remains. I affirm for every person present, divine right activities saturate our lives. We are inundated with the energy of joy, the energy of love, the energy of divine possibilities. I affirm further this thought by Ernest Holmes. I multiply, I expand, I prosper. I am success, happiness, and fulfillment. I repeat, Ernest Holmes wrote, I multiply, I expand, I prosper. I am success, happiness, and fulfillment. May we always, in all ways and at all times, experience and manifest the most magnificent and enriching dimensions of the other you. Love and blessings.
going to play you just a part of a recording that Dr. Lloyd sang into my phone in 2013.
You are a star so bright. You are a star shining your light. You are a star throughout the night. You are a star so bright.
So we wrote this song, and you can sing along. You are a star so bright. You are a star shining your light. You are a star all through the night. You are a star so bright. You are a star so bright. You are a star shining your light. You are a star all through the night. You are a star so bright.
May I share how that was written?
Yes, you may.
Actually, I was sitting in the chapel here one morning when Reverend Nadine was doing the staff prayer. And an inner voice said, "Here is a chant." And I said, "Lloyd, you're listening to Reverend Nadine. You can't write nothing right now." Anyway, I wrote it down, and then afterwards an inner voice said, "Well, here is the music." I said, "Lloyd, you don't know nothing about music. How you gonna?" So I kept the tune and ran down and hummed it to Tom, and that's how that came.